And we're live again. Yoo-hoo! Hey, and it's such an interesting conversation because I've got myself a guest today. Do you have any way of putting your name up,
I
Dave?
I thought I did.
Yeah, I mean, I can see your name here, but it's just not showing up on the screen. That's the only thing I'm wondering about.
No, no, I don't
Um,
know.
I've never had a guest with me live before, so I haven't the faintest idea. It says edit display name, but your name is there. So for some
I might,
reason doesn't show up.
maybe it shows your end and not mine. I don't know. Really don't know.
Well, it doesn't actually show. I mean, I can see there are two. I mean, there are two different types of screens. So there's a screen with
Mhm.
you and me in it, and then below that there's a little screen with me and a little screen with you. And on that your name is, but it doesn't show for some reason.
Well, we can crack on. This is about me supporting you more than anything. So
It's
it's
fine.
all
And
good.
so
It's all good.
it's a really interesting conversation today. And I there were loads of people that were going to join us. I don't know if they have, but there were quite a few that signed up to it. So let's just get cracking. And so this is there is somebody saying ask Chat GPT.
Very good. Very good. I'm focused on this at the moment, so I won't I won't go down that.
Exactly. So so yeah, thank you for that. That was that made us laugh, didn't it? But so we'll just crack on. So today it's OpenAI, ChatGPT, and what to think from an intellectual property perspective. That's the title of our conversation today. So so let's get going.
Yeah, and for anyone that has joined this that knows perhaps myself and not Celeste. Celeste is well, she's the only person I know that knows her sector so well. You know, trademark expert, copyright, etc. She knows her stuff. I'm just into tech and I love it. I just sort of we've been speaking about technology for the past 6 months or so, off and on, about blockchain and other bits and pieces like that. And now that this AI has exploded since tail end of November last year, we've both been having many conversations with each other on WhatsApp and over the phone about this. So yeah, we just see this as a good
Even
opportunity
on
to
Zoom meetings.
yeah, yeah. We've done a few of those as well. So yeah, just a good opportunity to have a chat between two friends and see what we come up with, if anything.
So a lot of people are wondering about, and this is probably mainly a question for me, if I'm completely honest, but people are wondering how anything that ChatGPT comes up with can be claimed as their original content. Have you ever heard anyone mentioning that?
Yeah, daily. I think the thing is with this, what is original? Because you can get that from someone's website. You can read something and go, I'll take a section of that and I'll use that for some writing. We've all done it. We have to go and do research. And this goes back not tens of years, but thousands of years. You go to a library, you pick a book up, you read it, and you take notes out of it and turn it into something or other. Um, the definition of original is quite a grey area, I think. And what I've tried to sort of help people understand is, look, your thoughts are original. So if you ask Chat GPT to go, write me a piece about social media, it will do exactly that. But if you give it some prompting and keep questioning it like you would with a human, you then can extract what I would say is more original content than just solely AI, and you can pull it to pieces. And I'm one of these sort of people that does that, and continually go, right, that's not enough. I need this. I need this. I need this. And once you've got an item of text, you can humanize that to your own way. So although that sounds like a long-winded way of doing it, the speed that it works at is really impressive. And this is where it's going to help content creators. It's going to help all creative types, basically. and people like me that come from a regulated background that can do facts as well, because you can actually link it now to the likes of Google, so you can get it working with internet if you want that proof and that evidence of, oh, and by the way, this is the website link that I got it from. But it generally doesn't scrape the internet. It has data that's fed into it over time. So that thought process, you've got 50% of people say, no, it doesn't, it does this. You've got the others that make it say, no, actually, it's had information fed into over the period of time. But the legalities of the ownership of the content, et cetera, yeah, that's way out of my league. I don't understand that at all. And you're the expert on that without shadow of a doubt. So, yes, on one hand, it's great. It helps. It will help people get ahead of the game. I mean, I found a video this morning that I posted on LinkedIn where you could get a real good head start amongst your competition if you're into SEO. So there's ways of utilizing it. But yes, I think you've got to be careful when you sort of write something and go, oh, by the way, this is mine, or at least imply that.
Yeah, because I mean, I watched someone do a LinkedIn Live where they said that their brother would feed a lot of information into the ChatGPT, and then the output was something that they would use almost as if it was their, not almost, but as if it was their own, because it would be written better than if they'd written it themselves. From my perspective, as a person who studied the law and a person who knows about intellectual property in general, and specifically about copyrights and trademarks, I just think that it's you can feed a lot of information into. I've asked ChatGPT to write sales pages. I always tweak them though, so that it's still more me that comes through it. Because I feel that when you utilize something like that, I'm not particularly good at writing sales pages. I'm completely honest about that. It's not my it's not my strong point, so to speak. So when I ask ChatGPT because I take information from like the services that I've got on my website and I feed that into the ChatGPT, I still edit that because I still want it to sound like me.
Yeah.
And because what we say for something to be yours, your original content, it has to have your thumbprint on it, as we say. Yeah. And so that's why I still want to edit it, so that even though I get a fairly good result, and you can always give feedback into the machine, which is a good thing, because then it gets used to your tone of voice. But still, there are words. I mean, I got it to write something the other day, and I was like, yeah, okay, I wouldn't have put that word in there. I would put this word in. So, you read it through and you think, does this actually make sense or not? Because if it doesn't make sense, then edit it, for goodness sake, because that way you make sure that it reads well as well. Yeah. And I know that you've said about some of the things that was on my website before I decided to almost do I wouldn't call it a feng shui, but definitely like sweep a lot of the surplus information out. I'm somebody who I like a lot of information, and so I put loads of information up on my website, but a lot of it was surplus.
Yeah.
So I've swept a lot of it out. But and you said to me at one point when you read on my website that it doesn't read very well, and that's just because it comes from my head. And remember that English is my fourth language, right? Yeah. So when we think about all these things, I think our friend Jim is here actually. Hi, Jim. He used ChatGPT to help him write with his website, he's wrote the basic content. Wow, yeah, that's it. You can write the basic content and then actually have it rewrite it for you.
Yeah, it will. It will do code. I'm not a programmer. I have no interest in it. It really
I
doesn't
have no
float.
interest in that either.
But I know it codes. I know it will write. If you want to write a book, I've never written a book in my life. I know Celeste has. I wouldn't know where to start. So I prompted Chat GPT. There we go. There's evidence of said book. So I prompted Chat GPT to put one together for me, and it's something I'm in the middle of doing at the moment. Now, it's not going to write the book for me, but it's helped me plan it, and I can go by chapter to chapter, doing something I've never done before. That's where, for me, it's extremely helpful. Now, getting back to Celeste's website, because she speaks 5 languages extremely well. Well, 6 actually, yes. Better than I speak English, by the way. So you've got to hold your hands up to her. But she thinks in English. I think I'm right in saying now, because obviously you're over here. I was thinking, write it first in your mother tongue, which is Danish, and then see if you can sort of work it back that way. So we had a couple of chats about that, but I was thinking, let's see if we can do this as a translation using Chat GPT. And we tried that, didn't we? And it worked.
I haven't actually tried it, to be completely honest with you. You suggested it, but I haven't done it yet. Because when I do content for LinkedIn, I do not translate it. It would take far too long for me.
Yeah.
Even my book, I did not write it in Danish first. I wrote it directly in English.
Yeah. So, but do you remember when I sent you a WhatsApp message about your industry, and I said, I've just got this off of Chat GPT. Can you read it? And it wasn't designed to be perfect. I just wanted to see how it went. And you came back and said, generally speaking, yes, that's pretty good. Where did you get it from? And that's when I introduced you to it. And then I said, I'm going to translate it from English into Danish, send you that. I'll do Danish into Swedish, which I did. And you said they were pretty good,
They were. They were. Yeah,
so
they were.
With that in mind, for a translation tool, it seems to be quite well. And I'm going to use this phrase with the best possible intent. I deliberately chose Danish and Swedish because I know Celeste speaks French and Italian as well, and a bit of Spanish, from what I gather. As I see it, and I hope you'll agree here, they're more of a minority language. There aren't hundreds of millions of people like English and Spanish speaking that speak Danish and Swedish. It's quite, like that. So it was a good test, is what I'm saying. And since then, it really piqued my interest, and I've dived straight into this. And at the moment, I'm looking at the Google Chrome extensions that you can use, and some of them are absolutely astounding. They're marvelous. But it goes deeper than that. There's going to be art. There's going to be sort of images, probably video content that one will be able to do through one source instead of going here, there, and everywhere. Because I think that's the next stage. It's got to be. I remember when the internet came out, it was very basic. It was a picture that took ages to upload, and we stood there like that going, oh, this is good. What do we do with it? we can just talk to the thing as if it's like a cousin, brother, mother, sister, ask it questions. But it's all about the prompt. However good the input is will define how the output is. And I saw a post earlier today on a social media page where someone had asked it a question. It came back with a very basic answer. Well, it's because the question wasn't good enough. It's quite simple. If you go in with better questions, it will learn to sort of feel for what you want and what you're after and so forth, and recognize certain things. And there's even technology now that can actually humanize it a little more. So when Celeste was editing her page, as she spoke about earlier, there is AI technology that can grab it and see if it's human or machine created. We'll use that term loosely speaking. There's lots of them about. Most of them don't actually work, because I've done some.
Just put 42 up, and if anybody's read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, that has to be the best reply to anything. What's the meaning of life and the universe in 42?
Well, it's if you put your cynical head on, there's corporations behind these designers that obviously are going to help them and pay them whatever it is they need. And I'm all for originality and everything. You know, I used to be in a band. I can play instruments and stuff like that. I actually wrote some lyrics to a song. And my lyrics, they've not been written anywhere else. And it came up as AI detected. How does that work out? Yeah, exactly. So these detectors are not all that they are. They're probably as reliable as people are thinking ChatGPT is. And when ChatGPT gets better, because it will, like the internet has, it's just evolution. We've just got to think, look, this stuff is coming. We've got to either let other people go on with it, they'll get ahead of the game and strip everything out, or we've got to learn how to use this to our benefit.
Yeah.
And my thought is this: if it gives you some time back, right? If it helps you do other things, you know, because you can do these bits of these mundane stuff, bits and pieces quicker, to me it's a good thing. Where I don't like it is the possibility of certain jobs that could be taken. But let's hope that those people that have had their jobs taken away through evolution, find either a way where they can utilize it and do something completely different that they never even thought of, or get retrained in something else. You know, that would be the humane way. Unfortunately, not all companies think like that. So we've got to sort of support people that are skeptical and worried about how it's going to work out for those guys and gals, you know. And I fully support and sympathize with them too.
Yeah. And I mean, there was a comment earlier about, what was it? The legal aid AI is super interesting. And I would be a tiny bit concerned about that, because there are things in there that may be useful and stuff like that, but there are still things that need to be considered. I remember when I studied the law, we read this case where I can't remember where the case took place, but the wife left the husband and the 2 children, and he got frustrated or upset or whatever you want to call it, and decided to shoot the wife and the 2 children. And then he tried to shoot himself, but he only blasted the bottom bit of his face off. And so when it came to the sentence from the court, you have to take into consideration the fact that this man, whenever he looks in the mirror, he will never forget that he killed his wife and 2 children, and he tried to take his own life. That is judgment enough. You know, it's enough. He doesn't need further shaming or blaming or whatever you want to call. I mean, don't forget, the minute we start, us who start studying the law, we are so fucking hard on people. You know, the moment we just want justice, like wham, you know, almost pull out the guillotine and we will put it up in the market square and we will behead everybody. That's how fired up we get.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. And then the further we go down the line of studying the law, we soften up again. It's so amusing. And I noticed it in myself, and it's so interesting. And you just wonder, what on earth is where are we going to end up? I mean,
well, it's interesting you discussing that. I've got my ex-sister-in-law. She's legally trained. She's a barrister now, and I've always said to her, look, you know, I'd never argue with the legal, because I don't win those arguments. You know, I don't understand law. It doesn't float my boat as such. It fascinates me, but it's not something I can spend years devoting my life into. I like things that are fast paced, that change all the time, and this sort of thing. And what she said to me, and it was a relatively recent discussion we had, was, look, for all the legal forethought and everything else, we are still struggling to this day of managing things that go on Web 2. She's calling it Web 2 now, finally. And she's quite right. And she's an expert in stuff like that. And I thought to myself, that's quite a profound thing to sort of come out with and just blast out. But the other thing is also with legal ownership on a lot of things, in fact, virtually anything, can be viewed in several different ways until there's something definitive that's put down. Don't know, this is how it's done. And with technologies moving so fast, it's no wonder that these teams of highly educated, clever people are struggling to keep up. I used to comfortably deal with emails from a day-to-day basis. I wake up now with the work that I'm doing in this fast-paced industry. It's not unusual for me to have 500 messages to pile through. And it's why I take a long time to get back to people, because I haven't got to their message yet. Because I do things in order, top to bottom. First thing I see, that. But with AI, eventually there's probably going to be something that will do that for me. I just haven't found it yet. But you got to.
I mean, it would be nice to have, because when we open our emails, sometimes a lot of the things that are in there is just stuff that we've subscribed to. So like, and one of the things that I subscribe to is what's it called, Riverford Organics. I am crazy about organic food, not just because of the taste, but because it's better for the earth. And let's go into that, because I can go off on a complete different tangent here. But so that's why our inboxes are often full of these things that we are subscribing to. So, and sometimes it would just be nice to have somebody go through the inbox and say, okay, is this something I actually need to respond to or not? Or can I just delete this because it's actually just a kind of advert for their business?
You're right. And there's probably something that you can do to automatically delete stuff that you just don't open. It will get used to your reading habits. I know with Telegram, I use that more than WhatsApp. I get a lot of my news through there. I don't do so much on the net now, other than perhaps Twitter. I'll go on there once in a while. But there's a way that you can set up a Telegram group where your posts and what you've put down there is available for a day. Now that's AI. If you go back to Stephen Hawking, who was computer generating his conversations, guess what? That's AI. It's been around since the 50s. This isn't new. It's just that it's taken this long for something so blooming explosive to come out that it's setting the internet on fire at the moment, and it's to such a stage where, depending on where you live in the world, there's certain times of the day when you try and go on, you can't get any traction with it. It just won't let you in. It'll just come up with some spurious message saying it's busy. So what that's enabled people to do is just download different browsers and try and each one to see if they get in. I'm a case in point in that. I've done exactly that. But I haven't had any issues yet in terms of getting in. I just logged in once and it's been there ever since. So maybe I'm lucky. Maybe it's because I got in from day 2 or 3, whenever it was. I don't really know. But I don't automatically rely on it. I do other things way before I even look at it. And when I do, I use it to give me some kind of inspiration, because I have terrible writer's blocks. If I want to write something on LinkedIn, because my industry changes so fast, I might have 10 things that I want to write about. Well, I'm not going to write 10 things. I haven't got all day to do that. So I'll be deliberating which one is the best to choose. And now I can look at a headline and create something out of that headline, because that's the inspiration that it's given me. That headline isn't mine, but by the way, it isn't Cointelegraph's, it's someone else's, and so on. It goes down a very long line. So once I've used that, I can do some content, humanize it, and then change the headline to something completely different, but it will still have a similar message. Now, I don't know whether that's mine or not. The idea is, but what's out on paper, I've no idea. Again, that would be more your field in terms of yes.
Well,
no,
I would say you're the one who put the information into the machine, and you're the one who is humanizing it by editing it to give your take on it. So for me, in that case, because you've edited it, you've given even more of your thumbprint to it, so that, for me, but this is my personal opinion. I don't speak for the whole legal industry. Don't get me wrong. This is me, my personal opinion. So I would think that was enough. But if it's entirely true, I do not know. This is my opinion. All right. So we have a few questions here, and the chat seems to be going quite a lot. Somebody has used AI to argue an insurance claim. Wow. Okay. Somebody else is writing, there are lots of generative AI integrations across lots of industries already, and so far everything that's been mentioned as coming in the future is already at work in immediately available use cases. In all of these cases, at least as I've seen, the companies offering these applications directly state their copyright and IP use policies. Is there any actual legal reason to deal with material, whether text, video, music, etc., again, already happening through fully or near fully gen? I can't read anything other than that. I don't know what, I can't see the rest of that comment. It's quite a lengthy comment, and I'm not sure what this person is getting at. But it seems that this person is saying that all of the things that we're talking about is already out there, and it doesn't surprise me, because, as you said, it's started back in the 50s. It's just taken this long to get it to be something that all of us can have access to, because back when Steve Hawking's had that voice, which was an American voice, which was a bit peculiar for a Brit, but it was really helpful to him, and his case was so amazing. Let's not go into the details of that, but I mean, it's taken a long time for things to get here, and
you're right, and I haven't seen this particular person's comment, and I am aware of what generally is going on, but I also have a life, so I can't keep up with absolutely everything that industry wise. There are sectors I don't care for, that I don't bother looking at. I'm very much into the entertainment and construction and things like this. That's my background. Insurance, I worked in that industry for several years, so I know about that. There's going to be a legal case where a robot, as they've called it, is going to represent someone in the United States. Apparently, that's the world's first that's coming. There's lots and lots of applications. Now, I play guitar, and I used to be a drummer. There isn't a very good AI app, or any AI, that will teach you how to play an instrument, because you use your ears and they can't hear for you, to my knowledge. Might come, but it's not the way that I do. I look and I use these two things as well, and then that tells me where to put my fingers on the strings and so on. So with musicians, for argument's sake, yes, I know you can get preloaded sound bites and everything else, but they're not very good. You go and see Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones play a solo of a particular,
Brian May. I love Brian May. I'm a huge fan of Brian May.
Yeah. You see Brian May do Bohemian Rhapsody. See him do that live. The next time he does it, it'll be different. We do it. We improv. So that's from
the whole fascination with music, isn't it? It isn't just something that comes out of a machine. I mean, parts of it are, and that's totally fine. But when you go out and you perform it live, it gives you a different feeling. Because
I've seen
you see the way what's his face? Freddie Mercury would interact with his audience. I mean, I've never been to a Queen concert myself, but I've watched recordings, and the way that he was interacting with them is mind-blowing. He would play with them and get them to interact, and the whole reason behind "We Will Rock You" was because they wanted
Yeah.
the audience to feel that they were part of the band and give that feeling. You cannot get that from a machine ever.
That is the one of the things that's missing. I mean, the other thing is this, and I've seen. I've lost count. I used to work on the road for some bands anyway, so I've seen over 1,000 groups to date, and some of the acts that I've seen, especially the electronic ones, even that has a variant because it's defined by human input. I mean, if you do computerized music, turn it on and just walk off the stage, it's very boring to watch. But with some industries and going to construction, I saw a video last week of how AI was looking to improve, and I watched this robotic thing walk up some steps, and it was too slow. It was clumsy. It would never be allowed on site at the moment. No, certainly not in the UK. It would be a hazard. So there is a long way for things like that to go. But the tech behind it.
And then on the other hand, you have a group like ABBA that have got all those motion grabbing things on them, and they have done, because it's really hard for people in their 70s to go on the road and perform live. They have created this whole show where they were motion grabbed, and they have these avatars, as they call them, I think.
Well,
I'm hesitant to go watch that because ABBA was massive when I was growing up. I grew up in the 70s and the 80s, and being in Denmark, Sweden was just next door, and we were just massive fans. I have never been to an ABBA concert, not a live one, but nevertheless, I'm a massive fan. I just can't imagine that I would react as well to a bunch of avatars as I do to the human that form ABBA. Because
that's slightly different technology. You got holographic
different technology, but it's fascinating still.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the AI route that we seem to be going down is just getting more and more explosive. I'm waiting for the time where there'll be an app where it will be a one size fit all. But AI technology
anyway,
and stuff like that, it's here. It's being used. It's getting better. It's helping people get more productive. But on the flip side, it's also worried an awful lot of people, especially at universities and schools. I mean, there was I'm trying to think of the chap's name. I'll think of it in a minute. There was a guy of note in America. He was on one of these TED type talks, and he come out and he said that ChatGPT will basically make a lot of universities go out of business because it's a business in the States, as you know. And I thought, yeah, it probably will. But if they learn to adapt it so it does help, then that can be reversed. Everything can.
And so we have some more questions. Let's have a look. Or comments. So there's somebody who says that the IP is a prompt to ChatGPT. The IP in a prompt to chat is not considered your copyright, as it is generated by the user and not created by you. Well, I don't know about that. As for the prompts, they can be seen publicly as they are used to initiate a conversation with an AI model like ChatGPT, which is publicly available. However, the content of the conversations themselves are typically not publicly available unless the user specifically chooses to make them public. OpenAI does have privacy policies in place to protect user data. Yeah, and the human is the user. So, the information that you input into it comes from you. And so whenever the AI or the GPT or whatever you want to call it creates content, as we said at the very beginning, it may be considered generic, but you've put the information in, and the more information you get in, the better outcome you get out.
Yeah.
That's
the thing I argue with everybody is nobody And I tell you what, if anyone does, I'd like to meet and I'd buy whatever it is off of you. No one knows what I'm going to do or say in the next few moments, let alone, in some minutes' time or hours or days. Nobody. There's no such thing as a mind reader. That's all total bollocks and nonsense. But I do respect that there is so much data and information going in from development to now. And we've got to remember, this is still beta stage. You wait and see the next version of it. It'll be absolutely outstanding. Now, going off on a slight tangent, I've worked with blockchain technology, and that has grown massively in the past 3 years, let alone the 12 or 13 or whatever. So this will do the same, because the majority of people will finally understand how it will work best for them, how they can make it, act and work for them and be more productive, and so on and so forth. My concern, which has always been the same from day one, is to what suffering would we as human beings have to put up with that? But then we had the same thing with the tractor when that was invented, and the wheel, and fiat currency, and so on and so forth. We can go back thousands of years. As a race, we've just learned to deal with things and get on with it. And how we do that in the future,
and
nobody
it
knows.
is part of human life that changes happen, and we cannot stop progress.
Yeah.
It's not possible.
Yeah.
We can't just sit and decide, oh, let's go back to the Victorian age. It's not possible, people. So we can either embrace it and say, okay, it's here. Why are we going to be afraid of this? Well, because it might make parts of what we do redundant. Okay, so because we are human beings, and because we can think creatively, and because we can decide how we react to things, we can say, okay, it's here, and let's take advantage of it. Let's make the most of it, instead of being scared shitless. I mean, I can understand that it is scary in a way, and particularly when people say that there's a robot that's going to represent them in court. I find that a little bit scary, because the robot doesn't have human emotion, and as with that case where the man had the bottom half of his face blown off, they didn't punish him any further, because it was punishment enough that he had blown half of his face off. He didn't need any further punishment, So there are situations where a robot cannot do what a human being does, because the robot doesn't have our emotion.
I hear a lot of talk about from both sides of the fence, and I welcome it. I mean, it certainly creates a very interesting debate as to what's good, what's bad, what's indifferent. And just going off on a slight tangent here, I'm just about old enough to remember when the United Kingdom went from an imperial monetary system to metric, and it threw the whole country out for ages. It took my mum and my grandparents years to get used to this new system. Well, I've always used it, because I think I was 5 or 6, and giving me age away at the time when it came out. So I've always had decimalization in terms of money, but we've gone on from that. And yes, this is a bigger thing than that. But back then, that was a pretty big deal, you know. And we lived
even
through
the tractor, because horses were the thing back then. You know, you had horse-drawn carriages and all that. So. And all of these things are revolutionary when they show up. And it's just about saying, okay, well, what can we do to make the most of it? And how can we ensure that what is out there is still something that we can live with? And I mean, hopefully we're not going to make ourselves redundant in the process. That would be
absolutely.
For words.
Absolutely. I mean, there's schools of thought where people are muting that we could be the pet of the robot, so we're paid to stay at home whilst the robot goes to work or does the work for you or whatever. I sort of see it, and I sort of think to myself, Yeah, but it'll only happen like that way if you let it. You know,
Yeah,
if you don't let it happen.
exactly. Only if you let it.
Yeah. And, you know, with the way things were prior to November, you know, we've always had AI tech for the past 20, 30 years that I can remember. And it's just got better and better and better in terms of what it can do. And I was as surprised as most when I see all these things come out. And every time I mean, the irony is it's giving Google a real kicking, right? Google are really struggling as to, we have something and they have the tech, but the problem they've got is they are trying to work out how to monetize it, because if they go, well, here's our equivalent, and they don't monetize it, they could go under overnight, quite literally. You know, is that good or bad? I don't know.
But I don't know. I'm not the judge of that.
No, and neither am I. And I don't have the capacity or the knowledge to sort of go too deeply into it. But this is the crazy thing about Google. They own YouTube. And there's millions of YouTube videos showing people how to work with ChatGPT. I think that's crazy. So on one hand, they're worried and scared around it. They had a red alert put out, and yet they're letting a sister company that they own have a bit of a free for all, because they still need that monetization going through. So I get it from both sides from them as well. I really do. And there's never going to be that one argument that's going to be, that's it. It's like politics. You know, you've got left versus right or what have you. Well, people will side with one, people will side with other. There's never anyone that brings it all together. But the times in front of us are going to be very, very interesting. I mean, I've read that March, April time could be the release of the next one, which I think they've called it GPT-4 or whatever. Now, if it's as good as what I've read that it may be, you know, where's it going to end? This could be a case where you can, and a friend of mine told me this about 18 months ago. He said, there's going to be technology where you can talk into something. He didn't elaborate what the something was, and I didn't really ask, but you can talk into something and you can tell this something to build you an all singing, all dancing website that fully monetizes and does everything and has all SEO optimization already there. You tell it what to do and it will do it. Now, that's great. And here's the but. I said earlier, I'm not really a tech. I just got an interest in it. I would not have the first idea what to tell it what to do, even if I prompted ChatGPT to tell me, because I don't understand it. And that's where, and that's where the difference is, where people are worried about work. If they're in that field, we'll just sort of pick on those guys for a minute, because they know what works and what doesn't. They'll know the right questions straight away. It could take me months before I get it, by which time they could have built 10, 20 websites or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's how I can see where it would benefit people that are already doing those types of projects that are concerned about it. They can use it to check. Again, I'm not a coder. I've seen it, right? It may as well be in Chinese for me. It doesn't make any sense at all. But I know it's code because I know what it looks like. But I don't know what it does. I don't read it. But someone who understands that can look at it and go, blimey, that's done that in a fifth of the time that I can do it. Do you know what? I can get away early today and go home and spend time with my family or go out with my friends and things like that and still get paid the same rate. That's where I think there's going to be benefits and so forth. But yeah, there will be casualties as well, unfortunately. But I think the pros will, once all the sort of legal side of things are mapped out, will probably far outweigh it.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have more comments. Someone is asking who could own the rights to an avatar made from YouTube videos. Wow, that's a really different question. I don't know that, because an avatar created from YouTube videos, that sounds weird.
If you make an avatar, I've made one. If you make an avatar, you as a user buy the project. Now I used Unreal Engine, and I used that. I bought a subscription and I built an avatar, and it took me about 10 minutes. It was dead quick.
But did you do it from YouTube videos though?
I can use it on videos, but
Right.
I'm not sure what the question means, but
I'm not sure either, because so the wording is, who could own the rights to an avatar made from YouTube videos? I don't know, because it depends on so many things, and it's
well, here's the thing.
it's not something that I can answer here and now. I would have to look into it from the legal perspective, so I can't say that.
I'll answer the question. It's dead simple. Anyone that puts any content on any social media network does not fully own it. The second you've got that out there, you read those terms of service or terms of conditions, you do not own them outright. They're not 100% yours, because you're using their platform. So you're providing content. They're going, thank you very much.
If we didn't provide any content, their platform would die.
Yeah, because it relies on that. So does Facebook, so does LinkedIn, so does everything. Everything that we use in social media is all dependent on the input from the users, which is us, right? So if we all decided tomorrow not to put anything on LinkedIn, Google, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Pinterest, etc., so Reddit and so on and so forth, those platforms would eventually just fold. They wouldn't have any income. There's no one there, nothing going on. And this is again an interesting thing about the future. Something else I talk about with things like the metaverse and Web3 and all that sort of stuff. If you can incorporate all this wonderful, amazing technology, and what you create is yours, and you're getting paid for it, that's got to be good for the creator. Not so good for the hosting side, but if the hosting side's decentralized, which none of these aren't because they've got people that own it, therein lies the problem. So to answer your question, go and read the terms of service, and that'll probably answer it for you. But no one reads them.
Yeah, that's
no one reads terms of service. They're long and boring to legally sort of
too complex in many cases, because they're written in legalese, and a lot of the ways that, a lot of the people who write stuff like that. I mean, when I wrote, this was something I wrote with my language and my way of expressing myself. And before that, I had a blog about copyright while I was studying the law. And somebody very dear to me told me that it wasn't very high legal language. And that was completely on purpose, you see, because it was my thoughts, and I wanted ordinary people to understand it. I have no intention of the content that I create for it to be difficult to understand, because there's so much of that already.
No one would read it. No one would read it.
No one would benefit from it. The whole point of writing my personal thoughts is that I want the other person who reads it to benefit from it. Because otherwise, why the hell would I write it? Why would I be somebody else who turns out legal shit? I mean, maybe this will never be used in universities. I'm fine with that. I never aimed it at universities in the first place. I aimed it at ordinary people who have created a unique product or service that they are wanting to understand how to protect.
Yeah. I can sort of see where you are with this, because in a former life I sold terms and conditions, so there's not much people can tell me about them. I did it for a number of years. No one reads them. No one reads them back cover to cover. Well, that's not strictly true. The people that do read them are legally trained.
You've fallen out.
Tiny.
You fell out.
So
there was
you're talking fractions of a percent.
There was a hole in the connection, so I didn't hear what you said. So the people who do read it are legal.
Yeah, the legals or legally trained, which accounts for a tiny percentage of the population. So they are interested in that. But
Can
generally
I say
speaking,
something? I'm not necessarily interested in reading
yeah,
terms and conditions.
exactly. Most legal people I've spoken to said exactly the same thing, but they have to go through that process. And this is going to be interesting to see how it's going to be adopted, if I can use that word, in the AI sector and other technologies as well, because it moves so quickly. By the time they've caught up with something, they're 3-4 years behind and something else has happened. It just doesn't move quick. So we may never get there. And that's probably why they can't police the internet at the moment, because that's still an ongoing process for them. This is going to make their life hell. But they can't walk away from it. They've got to do something. And I think if only we could all collectively have our say and say, look, this is what we'd like it to look like. This is what we'd like it to work. Then I suppose that's a bit of a socialist view, because everybody would be doing the same thing. There'd be no differentials or anything like that.
And we don't want differentials. We want originality, and we want different opinions, and we want different people. We want different colors. All of that. We want diversity in short.
Exactly. Because otherwise we would just be robots of each other, and that's certainly not the way that anyone wants to go, to be honest with you. If you do, you need your head looked at. But I just like the smart way that it can do things very, very quickly. That takes, and I say this to anyone that asks me, it takes away at the moment a lot of that heavy lifting that I really don't want to do. Most of us procrastinate about something or other, and they go, "Oh, big job that I've got to write a 10,000 word essay." Now, all right, for kids at school, it's a different matter. I can sort of see that. But when you've got a business to run and you've got other bits and pieces to do, and it's only you haven't got a team. For someone like that, like myself, it's a godsend, because you can get stuff done real quick.
And for me as well. But still, what I will always say, and I've said this the whole time we've been talking today, and I will keep saying it, keep editing it so that the output that you put out publicly has even more of your thumbprint on it, and your originality, and your way of stringing together a sentence, your way of expressing yourself, because that way you can retain the copyright to it. If you just copy and paste,
anyone can do that. Anyone can do that. You're right. It's all about adding value, bit of originality, adding context, expressing a view. I mean, I've seen some people on LinkedIn that openly started off with, this is what ChatGPT has generated, and done it for that reason, not because they want to, how can I put it? They had a reason for doing it in that style, because I remember reading the original. I'm going to be running a series of these posts. This is what they're going to be like. I'll be interested in feedback. And of course, this person has had feedback. I've given some feedback to this individual, and they've taken it on board and will perhaps adjust their writing style and so on and so forth. But there's no point being damning to anyone and saying, "Oh, look, you've done this because you were too lazy." Sometimes people like to experiment. We've all got different ways of doing that. And unless you do it 24/7 for the rest of your life, then I don't see there's too much harm in that. Once in a while, fine. If you're pressed for time and you need to get something out, you need to look like you've shown up or something. There are people that will do that. There are people that will regenerate old LinkedIn posts that they've done weeks before. I don't. I've never done that. I don't see that as presenting value, but there are people that look at that differently, and that's fine. We are all different. We've got these things on our shoulders, this head here with all these chemicals going around, and that combined with the heart in terms of what are you going to do today is the unpredictableness about us that makes us great, that you can't have in a machine type environment. I've worked in manufacturing, and I've worked for big manufacturers. My missus works for a very big manufacturer. They can't get away without using AI. It's everywhere. They've got robots everywhere. She works for Toyota. So you try and build a Toyota by hand and keep up.
Try and build any car by hand, by the way.
And keep up with demand.
Not possible.
Can't happen.
possible.
There's too many of us now. 8 billion on the planet. Lots of us have got, families have got 1, 2, 3 cars sometimes more than that. So they're having a struggle with things like, the COVID thing that's gone on with supply, et cetera, et cetera. It's getting better because that's starting to knit together. But if it wasn't for automated process and artificial intelligence and so forth, they would really, really be struggling. You'd have waiting times of 2-3 years, and that's no good. No one wants that. Even the elitist designers, the Ferraris of this world and Rolls Royce and places like that, I very much suspect that they've got an element of this too, because I know some of them are sort of Rolls Royce used to be prided on built by hand. I'm not up with them now. I don't know if they still do, but if you're building something that's very good and it is handmade and there's that way of doing it, then this stuff probably won't help you. But then again, it may well do. You just don't know until you sort of tweak around with it and play around with it. It could be a solution to give you time, because one thing everybody should agree on, and you certainly appreciate this as you start to get older, is the thing you will never get back is time. So if you can save some, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. And I have to agree, because time is the most precious commodity that we've got. Yeah. And a moment that's blown past cannot be given back to you, no matter how hard we try. Mm-hmm. It isn't possible. And so if something like this can help us create content and we still tweak it, then it has to be an advantage to everybody, because it's helping us. And many of us are wanting to spend time either with our spouses or partners or children or pets or friends. And if we have a job that is something that takes an awful lot of time, then when are we going to be with these people or animals, or even by ourselves? Maybe somebody likes to go out and walk long walks on our own. And if you have something where you have to be maybe available 24/7, which wouldn't be healthy in any way, but you have a high pressure to do stuff and be in a certain position or place, then maybe you can't go for these long walks. And so maybe by using ChatGPT to help you solve some things, or other types of AI, other types of automation, maybe it'll help, and maybe it'll free up time that you can spend on something different. And we have to applaud that.
One of the other things I was thinking of listening to you there, Celeste, is years ago I used to have an automated machine called a Goblin Teas Made, and it made tea. So this little gadget was a clock, an alarm clock. I've always got up at 5 a.m, so I'd set it for 5 o'clock. As the alarm went, you could see the clock there. It would start boiling the mechanism to make the water to make a cup of tea. So it would pour it into the mug, in my case, because I always drink out of mugs, add the milk, etc., etc. I'd have a mug of tea by maybe 5:15 or whatever. Now, I don't use that anymore. I don't even know if they still make it, because it wasn't very good. I preferred more traditional routes. And we're going to have that. We're going to have people that think the same with this, because we're seeing it right now. And you can't argue or persuade with people that are that way, or in that thought, that mindset, etc., etc. There's no point, because if they think it's not going to help them, they won't use it. It's the same with everything. If we didn't think the internet was helpful, none of us would be on it. But of course, most of us can't do our jobs without it now. That's how powerful that's become. This might be the similar sort of thing running in tandem. I don't really know. But to some people, they'll go, it ain't going to work with me, because they just won't want it to. They just won't let it work. And that's fine. That's their prerogative. If they can still coexist or even better than that, and it sort of doesn't impact on them at all, I hold my hands up and say, well done. But I just keep seeing it as, yes, there are millions and millions of use cases for this particular technology. I will never know every single one. I haven't got time to sit down and look at every case, and I'll only look at areas that interest me. But once they get to that stage where other things have caught up, this would have moved on anyway. So it will either be that sort of video moment where we had Betamax and VHS. Betamax was actually better, but VHS was the thing that went forward. There could be something else that we've not even heard of yet that will actually be a lot better than what we're talking about.
And you've got DVDs and Blu-rays is higher quality than DVD. And I'm somebody who totally loves my DVD and Blu-ray collection, because it means that I can throw the thing on whenever I want to watch it. I don't have to accept whether some platform will allow me to watch it. You know, when I have my collection, I can go down and I can pick out exactly the film that I want to watch in that moment, because I know that it's going to give me something. Either I'm going to have a laugh, you know, or I'm going to cry, or, you know, it depends on what the film is. And I just don't like those platforms that suddenly decide, oh, this is no longer available to you. And I'm like, oh, for crying out loud. And, you know, I know that that's old fashioned, and that's fine. I'm good with that. You know, it's who I am.
Yeah. You
know, and I still love going to the cinema. It's a completely different experience to me, you know, and some people will say that, oh, but the cinema is on its way out. I don't know if it is. If it is, okay, then we'll figure something else out. But for me, when I go to the cinema and the lights go out and all the mobiles are turned off, or at least on mute, it's a different experience. You sit there either with your friends and you have a fantastic experience, and you go out and you rave about it. If it's been a really good experience, if it's on your own, then you just think about what you've experienced. It gives you something different. Yeah, and it's like this as well. This will give you some sort of experience, and it can help you in certain ways, but it can also maybe not help, and that's fine too.
So from an IP perspective, Celeste, how do you see this going? What's your vision on this? What do you think with ChatGPT?
There will be instances where people just copy and paste and throw that out there as their own. It'll be difficult for somebody with legal training to help them if there was a case of infringement on that. So I think it's a period of adjustment, because the laws that we've got at the moment are trying to catch up, as you know. And I mean, they're trying to. I have recently read that WIPO has changed some of the legislation to accommodate for the fact that there are NFTs out there, and there is the metaverse and all of that. And as you know, that there are a lot of people, and I have a post, I think it's coming out maybe tomorrow on LinkedIn, or soon anyway, about the fact that there's been a spike or an explosion, a volcanic explosion of trademark registration, where it's either NFTs they're wanting to protect, or it's products and services in the metaverse. You know, it's about adapting to what's happening. We cannot sit on our hands. And you and I have spoken about the fact that I personally feel that, and this is going out on a little bit on a tangent, but I feel that the blockchain could help us with the trademark protection and registration, and because it makes the infringement so much harder.
Yeah.
But whether it's going to be on a public or a private, I don't know. I don't understand enough about it, as you know, but I read the introduction to a massive white paper. I haven't read the whole thing because it's so big, and I don't know when I would have time to read it. But it's about this. It's the whole conversation about blockchain and trademarks and the ecosystems that are with the intellectual property. Intellectual property is not going to go away.
No.
Okay. Well, if you try to copyright your inventions, then there's something wrong with you, because you can't copyright your inventions. So inventions need to be patented. Let me just get that out of the way straight away. There was somebody who wrote that on LinkedIn. I can't afford to copyright my invention. Well, no wonder, because you can't copyright inventions. So you can, when you've written a book like this is protected by copyrights. But because I'm me, I've also put my trademark on every single page. All right. So all the intellectual property goes hand in hand to form a shield of protection for you. Inventions are protected by patents. All right. He meant patent. Yeah, that's a different matter. But people often confuse this, and it's important to me to clear this up. What were you saying, Dave? You were asking me something completely
No, it's just your take on where it's going. And I'm glad you've mentioned blockchain, because I see blockchain, and this is just my view. I don't know anything more than anyone else, but I just see blockchain working hand in hand with stuff like this technology we're talking about, artificial intelligence and so forth.
Especially, but also with the protection of trademarks, which is my baby. I'm like, let's take advantage of this thing that's already there. Let's make it work for us. Let's make our lives easier.
We've got several different blockchain routes available that you can go down. Now, there's a phrase that's been around since I can always remember: spoilt for choice. Now, we are spoilt for choice. We've got a lot of choice, and therein lies the problem. Do we want a public blockchain that's transparent, everyone can see what's going on, but can't be interfered with because it's decentralized? Personally, yeah, I love that. Or do we want a private entity that's going to run all this? Well, who would that be? It would be
trademark authorities in this case, I think. I think that they're concerned about the fact that it would be public, because they would probably think that anybody would be able to tamper with it, but I don't think they can. I'm not sure I've understood it correctly, but I don't think that you can tamper with it when it's public, can you?
If you've got an entity that owns something, let's look at Amazon. Amazon could wake up one day and their higher management can go, we've got AWS, we don't want to do that anymore, and they'll turn it off without any warning. They can do that. No one owns the internet. And that's one of the godsends. No entity owns the internet. That you could make a case that Google actually does, because they got all the content and what have you. But putting that to one side, they don't own it. We can all go on. I don't use Google. I use other better engines now, and that's my choice. But nobody owns it. It's not like Apple's owned by Apple. Amazon. It's not. The internet is open source. Anyone can jump on and use it. Yes, you've got countries that can restrict. You've got others like where we live, where you can more or less do what you like, and so on and so forth. So if you had the same experience with blockchain, which, by the way, once you've put something on there and it's on the chain, it can't be amended, that's great. But if you've got a private entity that can mess around with it, that can decide to just pull the plug, basically, that's not very good at all, in my opinion. But someone who's very versed in that might be able to give me a case argument against that, and I'm happy to listen to it. So there's one way or the other, or what will probably happen is a hybrid, so a mixture of two, where you can have a bit of the best of both worlds. But the unfortunate thing with technology, it's not foolproof. It's not 100% tamper-proof or anything like that. In some ways, it's like us. It can be quite vulnerable if you haven't thought of absolutely everything. And I'm afraid no one's thought of absolutely everything. That person is not
even us who create the laws that not me personally, but legal people with legal background aren't able to think of every situation. It's not possible.
It's not.
And by the way, if we had laws that took every eventuality into consideration, maybe we would be so restricted we couldn't move. We don't want that. I mean, one of the reasons why you can't trademark everything is because we want to be able to have a conversation. If everything was trademarked, you and I wouldn't be having this conversation. You see,
true. Yeah.
So there's a point in not making everything trademarkable. I mean, in America, they have like 5 or 6 steps, which to me is a complete waste of time. Either it's registrable or it's not. Don't waste people's time. And yeah, I could go on forever about that. So I'm going to stop myself there because I can feel it coming on.
do we have any questions, Celeste?
I don't think that we've got any questions. We've got loads of comments. So the question about the avatar goes back to a YouTube video of a real person like Abba. Yeah. I don't know. I would probably think that would be an infringement because there's been a case in Denmark where there was a video created, deep fake, they refer to it as, where it was a video that was created by this female Danish entrepreneur, and it wasn't a very good video, but she was saying stuff she wouldn't ever say. And that is the scary stuff. And that is the thing that we need to be aware of with all these things that are out there. People may be able to mix, probably not you and me, because we're not interesting enough, because we're just ordinary people, but celebrities or people who are, in the public eye for whatever reason, politicians, royal families, they may be made to say stuff they've never actually said. And that's what we need to be aware of. And that's the downside to it, I think.
It is. It is, because people can see stuff that's been written and say the same thing. It's visually, if it's in front of you and you haven't said it and you haven't said it, there's a problem. That's that is all well and good. I mean, there's technology now that is so accurate that you're talking about avatars now, is you can design something that is almost a carbon copy of you. But I keep bringing it back to the thing. It hasn't got a head, a brain, a heart like you have. So, hasn't got it. Can't. So the day that they can reproduce is the day where we should get really worried. And I know it's a very light, off-the-cuff statement, but until such times, we've got some choices. Ignore it and hope it goes away. Don't think that's going to happen. I
don't think that's a very good option.
Carry on doing what you're doing. Fine, that'll work for some. Or endorse it and utilize it to the best of your ability. Make as much hay now whilst you can, because if it comes to the time when you can't do that anymore, at least you've got a stockpile of whatever it is that you've done. And we'll learn a lot more about this technology as time goes by.
And it evolves. Yeah,
and I think a lot of the dangers that people are worried about is that will learn a lot more about us too. But as I said, it will be as clever as you input. It won't be getting up in the morning, walking out your bed, making a cup of tea for you and bringing it into you and so on and so forth. You won't sleep. It won't be able to have feelings and emotions and have a proper human conversation, because they don't have it. Unless it's a living creature, that can't be done. There could be some technology in 1,000 years time.
You can't help thinking back to films like the Millennial Man? The film with Robin Williams?
I think it was called Millennial. The millennial man. I don't watch an awful
Yeah,
lot.
and then you had the other one with the kid in it. I think, was that called AI?
Yeah.
And the interesting thing with the Robin Williams thing was that he wanted to have human emotions and he wanted to be able to die. Which is really interesting, isn't it? Somebody is asking us to define a living creature. Do you want to define a living creature?
I haven't got all day for that. I mean, one that gets up, breathes, drinks, goes to the toilet, does all the things that we do on a day-to-day basis. That's a living creature. You know, plants.
An animal might not go to make a cup of tea.
Yeah. But you know, they do things. They have mechanisms of breathing, and if it's the case of plants, they still strive for things. You know, they're all dependent on water.
Plants are far more intelligent than a lot of people allow.
Yeah. But it's an interesting question, because you can say, all right, I went to school and my teacher told me that 1 + 1 = 2. How do they know that's right? And they'll go back to a source to prove that. Well, how do we know that source was right? You know, how do we know that when Newton was sitting under that tree and an apple fell on his head and he discovered gravity? How do we know he was the one? It could be someone before. He could have nicked it off of them. We don't know. It doesn't matter. You know, life is too short. We have to pick up the cards that we're dealt with and do as best as we can with that. And if someone needs help and if someone's struggling, bloody well help them. Don't let them struggle. That's not humane. I know the selfish thing is to do is just to blast on with all guns blazing and such like, but that's not great for the better of mankind. Let's help each other and see if we can endorse confidence in whatever that is. But yeah, it's just we by nature. I love people. It's my favorite subject. We always question things, because it's happening now with on your chat, and it's very interesting to hear this. And we do, and that's what we do, because we've got different opinions, and most of them are right or wrong, and there'll be some in the middle that doesn't matter if they're either way. And I'm the guy in the middle. I don't really care if it's right or wrong, to be honest with you. I don't want to give people misinformation, but I'll give them stuff to the best of my knowledge. This is how I see it, and there's nothing wrong with that, because it's better saying something and having an opinion than nothing at all.
And that's how I am as well. I think that's why we get on so well, you and I, because we have that thing. We both like to help other people, and we both like to give the knowledge that we have to the best of our. I mean, that's the whole reason I've got this YouTube. Not YouTube. Sorry, what am I waffling about here? I do these LinkedIn lives that also go out to my YouTube every Tuesday. Is because I'm sharing my knowledge about copyrights and trademarks and intellectual property. So, you know, and there will be people who will not agree with what I say, and that's okay. You know, that's totally okay. I'm fine with that. You know, these are my thoughts and my emotions around it.
Well, it's like, you know, there was this again, I don't know if that was AI generated. There was stuff going around on Facebook a while ago where it was a certain color dress, and I looked at it and I went, that's blue and gold. And then someone said, no, it's black and white. It was one of those sort of things. I'm going back a few years. Yeah, it was really, really big. And I thought to myself, I don't really care what color it is. I'm not wearing it regardless. You know, it's people's opinions to certain people are very important. But to the majority of us, once it's said a few times, we move on. We don't care. It's not going to make any difference to our lives. But, you know, I'm all for looking at this from a sort of both sides of the fence and deciding for whether it's going to be useful for me, and if I can help some people in the way where it can also help them. That in my view, I'm doing something good for you know, certain section of society. So yeah, that's really my opinion on the subject today. You know, I don't know if there's are there any questions to cover, or we covered it all?
Somebody's commenting, Greens change their minds with changing information. I think we shall soon have live AI. I don't know. Each eye sees a different world. That's true. That's true, isn't it? If we hold our hand up like that in front of our eye, we will see one thing, and then when we do it, we'll see something different.
See, that's an interesting point about, you know, live AI. Define soon. It's taken us over 60 years to get to where we are now. So yeah,
but if in the grand scheme of things, how long has the planet been here? Yeah. That's pretty fast. Yeah. If you look at how long the planet's been here. So I mean, it depends. You know, from one perspective, 60 years is like the blink of an eye.
It is, yeah. To a child, it's a long time.
I know.
To me, who's nearly lived that long, it's like, wow, that went quick. You know, and to someone who's in their hundreds, it's even less, you know. But it's interesting, you know. We all want definition, and even when there is a definition of something, it's not that definitive. It's really interesting. It's a great subject, this.
Plus, what was I trying to say here? We always have different opinions, and that's why it's so interesting being a human being, because if we all had the same opinion about everything, and if we had the same values, if we had the same whatever, it would just be bland. And we came here as infinite beings because we wanted to experience contrast.
Yeah.
And that is what we're experiencing. We're experiencing contrast. This whole AI thing is a massive contrast for many people. And some people will say, well, I didn't sign up for that. But actually, we did. We knew bloody well what we did when we came here. You know, some people will say, but I didn't choose my family. You did. We knew perfectly well whom to choose for the learnings that we needed this time round. Whether we come back again or not is a different matter. But this is a completely different conversation. But it's just interesting that the experiences that we are having while we're here on this planet, you know, we think that time is a concept. We think that time is real. It isn't. Everything is happening now. You know, so when somebody says we will soon have live AI, it's here. We just haven't accepted it yet. But it's a different way of seeing the world, and it's a different way of being. You know, if we remember where we came from and who we are pure love, and that's it.
Yeah.
So all the hate and shit that goes on is fear. There are two modes, hate and fear. Fear and love, I mean, sorry. Love and fear. And if you operate from a place of love, then that's what you see. If you operate from a place of fear, thinking, oh shit, this AI is going to take my job, then that's your experience, you know. It's what you make of it. And so many people do not realize that they are creating their own realities, and whatever shows up is something that we need as this incarnation that we are in to evolve.
Yeah. Now it's very, very interesting. We could talk all day about this, but
yeah, and we've already spoken for 1 hour and 23 minutes.
We have, haven't we? Well, I've got to wrap up because I've got to get out and get some stuff done. But
yeah, me too. But it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, as always.
Likewise, always a pleasure, never the pain.
And I know that our viewers will have had massive value out of this, no matter if they joined us from the beginning or the middle or the end.
Yeah,
you know, because there's so many different things going on in this conversation. So if you have any doubts as to what the overall topic is, it's still Chat GPT, but we have spoken about so many things. So do yourself a favor and go back and watch it from the beginning, because this conversation moves out of so many different tangents. And that's the interesting thing about human beings. We move down different tangents.
Yeah, we
and
do.
that you wouldn't have computers having this kind of conversation if it was robots. It would just be one question, one answer, and that would be it.
Yeah.
You and our conversations always evolve and go down so many tangents. It's so interesting.
Random language is tough for a computer at the moment, but I dare say someone will come up with a clever program, but I'm not sure I'll see it in my lifetime. I don't think I want to really, but there we go. Right, on that note, I'm going to say goodbye.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciated it.
Thank you for having me.
It was lovely. And thank you for joining us live. And if you haven't joined us live, you can watch it on replay. Thank you. Bye for now. See you next Tuesday.
Bye.